Turn your mic on.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our monthly meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. Before we get to the agenda, I'd like to ask everybody who is able to stand as Tim Pierce leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, for everybody's information, Tim is a GIS specialist for the county who is so instrumental in helping facilitate these meetings every month. So thank you very much, Tim. And I also wanted to make one other quick announcement before we dive into the published agenda. We wanted to introduce a new member. She is not with us yet. We're going to go ahead and get things underway because we do have a quorum. But at the last meeting, I forgot to acknowledge one of our members who was leaving, and that's Galt Porter, and just wanted to make sure that we had on record that we appreciated everything that he's done and express our heartfelt gratitude to him for his service on the BZA and wish him all the best. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and dive in on the consent agenda. For those of you who do not have a copy of the agenda or who are listening or for the first time, the first thing we'll concern ourselves with today is cases on consent. These are cases that have been reviewed by the board and by the professionals from various departments in the county and to which there is no known opposition at this time. We've discussed these cases in our work session. Certain staff comments and stipulations have been made, and we don't anticipate any further discussion is needed for a decision. So as we go forward, the County Zoning Division Manager, Mr. John Peterson, will read each case into the record, and under normal circumstances, every applicant would be here in person, and we'd ask that they raise their hand as their case is called. But since we're now following under a different protocol with COVID, consent applicants have been asked to listen into the proceedings from their cars. They don't need to do anything unless there is opposition here. If you are here in opposition to a case that is currently on consent, we'll ask you to identify yourself as that case is read into the record, and we'll then pull that case off consent and hear it as part of our regular case agenda. We'll then take a vote on all the cases still on consent at one time. Once we've approved of the cases on consent, we'll take about a 5-minute break so that Mr. Peterson and his staff can follow up with applicants as is necessary, and then we'll proceed to our regular case agenda. So with that said, I think we're ready to address the consent cases. Mr. Peterson, do you have any other comments to make?
I do have two more comments, Mr. Chairman. The first one is I would like to ask everyone in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn your cell phone off as the ringing does interfere to broadcast presentations. And number two, I want to remind applicants, opposition or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this hearing. Any information submitted after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. And Mr. Chairman, board, before we get going, there is one case on today's agenda. The applicant has asked that their case be continued for one more month, and that's a variance case V17, Telesforo, Semonego Cruz. They would like 30 more days to continue to work on their case, Mr. Chairman and board, so we would need to grant a continuance for that.
Okay. We need to go ahead and do that now then, John?
Yes.
Okay. Since that falls in Fred's district, I'll ask Fred to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll go ahead and move that V17 be held till June.
All right. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Everybody in favor, please raise your hand. And the motion passes of the vote of 3-0.
Okay. And that hearing, just for the record, is on June the 9th is our next hearing. So
Yep.
The applicant needs to be there on June the 9th.
Thank you.
And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
All right.
Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals, variance hearing consent agenda for May 12, 2021. First case on consent is variance case of V35, Julius Plaza LLC. Request a variance, number one, increase the maximum allowable impervious coverage from 70% to 91%. Number two, waive the required landscape enhancement strip. And three, reduce the side setback from required 52 feet from center line to 40 feet in land lot 902 of the 16th district. The property is located on the east side of East Cobb Drive, north of Johnson Ferry Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, stormwater management comments. Number 2, sewer comments. And number 3, fire department comments. Is there anyone here in person opposed to variance case of V35?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V42, Bruce Longmire requests a variance to allow an accessory structure, which is a proposed 616 square foot garage, to be located to the side of the principal building in land lot 36 of the 16th district. The property is located on the east side of Gunner's Run, north of Old Mountain Park Road. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V42? Mr. Chairman, Board, there was one person opposed, so we'll pull that one off consent and hear it in its regular order. Okay, next case is variance case V43. Cass Chapel requests a variance to reduce the exterior minor side setback from required 40 feet to 23 feet adjacent to the western property line in land lot 695 of the 17th district. The property is located on the southwest corner of Cooper's Hill Drive and Cooper Lake Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to traffic comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V43?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V44, Paul Edjua requests a variance to reduce the front setback from required 40 feet to 36.4 feet, which is existing. Number 2, reduce the rear setback from required 35 feet to 21 feet, which is existing. Number 3, increase the maximum allowable impervious surface from 35% to 36.9%. Number 4, allow an accessory structure, which is an approximately 214 square foot gazebo, to be located to the side of the principal building. Number 5, reduce the front setback from required 40 feet to 15 feet, which is existing, and the rear setback from required 35 feet to 20 feet, that is existing, for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an approximately 214 square foot gazebo. And number 6, reduce the side setback from required 10 feet to 3 feet adjacent to the eastern property line, and the rear setback from required 35 feet to 7 feet for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an approximately 462 square foot proposed stone gazebo in land lot 90 of the 1st District. The property is located on the south side of Little Willio Road across from Carl's Gate Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V44?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V45, Sachet Powell requests a variance to number 1, reduce the front setback from required 25 feet to 23.6 feet, which is existing. Number 2, reduce the rear setback from required 40 feet to 27 feet. And number 3, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure under 144 square feet for an approximately 80 square foot shed from required 5 feet to 4 feet adjacent to the rear property line and to 0.91 feet adjacent to the eastern property line, which is existing in land lot 15 of the 20th district. The property is located on the north side of Soft Pine Lane, east of Thicket Path. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V45?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V46, Hugh Tully requests a variance to number 1, reduce the major side setback from required 25 feet to 23.3 feet adjacent to Foxcroft Circle. And number 2, allow an accessory use, proposed in-ground pool and spa to be located to the side of the principal building in land lots 928 and 933 of the 17th district. The property is located on the northeast corner of Fox Cross Trail and Fox Cross Circle. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V46?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V47, Jeff and Lori Osterling request a variance to number 1, allow an accessory structure, a proposed 600 square foot shed to be located in front of the principal building. And number 2, reduce the front setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for a proposed 600 square foot shed from required 50 feet to 40 feet in land lot 236 of the 20th district. The property is located on the west side of Aqueduct Road, north of Cook's Farm Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, traffic comments. Number 2, stormwater management comments. And number 3, Building to have a metal roof system or roof to match the house, and either vertical board and batten siding stained and clear coated, or horizontal hardy board painted to match the home. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V47?
No.
Let the record shows no one opposed. Variance case V48, North Atlanta installation, request a variance to number 1, allow a freestanding sign that is taller than 19 feet in height to 20 feet in height, which is sign A. And number 2, increase the maximum allowable total sign area per sign from 200 square feet to 224.3 square feet, sign A, in land lots 1029 and 1060 of the 16th district. The property is located on the east side of Roswell Road and on the south side of Robinson Road. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V48?
No.
Let the record shows no one opposed. Variance case V49, Roy H. Meeks Jr. requests a variance to reduce the rear setback from required 20 feet to 10 feet in land lot 892 of the 17th district. The property is located on the east side of Atlee Woods Drive, west of Woodland Brook Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, stormwater management comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V49?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V51, Dennis Hurley requests a variance to number 1, reduce the rear setback from required 30 feet to 15 feet. And number 2, reduce the side setback from required 10 feet to 9.5 feet adjacent to the eastern property line, which is existing, in land lot 271 of the 16th district. The property is located at the northern terminus of Brasher Drive, west of Tambark Drive. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V51?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. And that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman and Board.
Great, thank you, Mr. Peterson. So it's back to this board. Are there any comments, questions, or discussion? Yes.
I will have a question about V44 for the DOT before we vote on that, but otherwise I can go ahead and make a motion now.
You do want to ask a question of the DOT?
I do, yes.
Okay, so maybe Amy, if you wouldn't mind just coming up.
Amy Diaz, DOT.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me get this out of the way now. The concern I had concerned the site map. I don't know if you have a copy of it there with the gazebo right up near Willio Road. Do you need my book, or do you have a copy of this somewhere?
I just didn't bring it up here with me, but I know what you're talking about, yes.
Okay. And my concerns were twofold. First, that there is apparently a site distance easement, and there's some sort of an ISD, and I don't know what that means exactly, but it says site distance easement very near to the gazebo. And then based on the comment from the District 2, from the chair, there are bushes between that gazebo and the road, and my concern is just simply that site distance is not an issue as that is presently being maintained.
So the gazebo itself is located outside the site distance easement.
Okay.
So we don't anticipate that it will cause a site distance issue.
All right.
The bushes are something that I and the chairman have been having a conversation about. That is something that our right-of-way department just let me know that we can get maintenance to go in and clear it out. A lot of times, traffic operations has let me know, a lot of times the citizen would prefer to do it because they can do it more a landscaping method, that looks nicer. Our maintenance people will just go. So that's something that I plan to work with the citizen with after this hearing.
Great, that's what I was going to ask of you anyway, so that's great.
And just so everybody knows, Mr. Chairman, we addressed this Monday at work session, and I do very much appreciate your looking into that. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much for the question. So that does not really then affect what we want to do with respect to the variance, I guess, but we will follow up on it. So I asked about any discussion. Are we ready for a motion? I'll entertain a motion.
You want me to do it? Fine. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as read in and as amended by the deletion from the consent agenda of V42, which has been pulled due to there being an indication of some opposition.
Okay. I got a second? Got a second? We'll have a quick vote, if I can call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. We are going to approve the motion with a 3-0 vote. Okay, for those of you whose case was on consent, you're free to go if you're here or in your car. If you are here, I'd ask that you please leave quietly. We'll now take a short break to give Mr. Peterson time for some follow-up communication before we move to our regular case agenda. Great. And welcome back to the monthly meeting of the Cobb Board of Zoning Appeals. We're now ready to proceed to our regular case agenda. Our procedure here is that Mr. Peterson will read a case into the record. The applicant or any representative of the applicant who wishes to speak will be asked to come forward and be sworn in by Ms. Margie Vasquez. And Margie, would you just raise your hand for everybody's benefit? Likewise, anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be asked to come forward to be sworn in as well. The applicant and opposition will both have 10 minutes to present their case. All testimony will be made from the podium over here to my right, where we've got full audio-visual capabilities. Testimony will be followed by questions from the board and may be directed at either party. So with that, Mr. Peterson, I think we're ready for our first case.
Okay. Variance case V173, Discount Tire. Request a variance to number 1, allow an additional 67.62 square feet in wall sign area for a building over 2 stories in height. Number 2, increase the maximum sign area on a freestanding sign from required 49 square feet to 98 square feet. Number 3, increase the sign structure area of a freestanding sign from required overall maximum of 162.5 square feet to 513.33 square feet. Number 4, allow a freestanding sign to be a pylon-style sign rather than a ground-based monument-style sign. Number 5, increase the maximum sign height from 19 feet to 35 feet. And number 6, allow the proposed pylon sign to be 6.9 feet or 6 feet 9 inches from the side property line in land lot 208 of the 20th District. The property is located on the northwest side of Ernest Barrett Parkway, northeast of Cobb Parkway. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed? The variance case is V173.
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good to see you again. Could you please give us your name for the record?
My name is Jennifer Wolf. I'm with its permittable agent representative for Discount Tire Walton Signage.
Got it. Thanks, Jennifer. All right, so you've got 10 minutes. Obviously, we've heard your case. I think we're looking maybe for some updates.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, board members and county staff. It is good to see you again. I'd like to take a moment to apologize for the limited information provided in the May hearing for this site. I have been to the site over 36 times, and in my mind, I know exactly what the challenges are. However, being that most of you have not been to this site, I failed to properly dictate and provide proof of these challenges. Thank you for allowing me to present these to you today. In our last hearing, we were informed that there was opposition by the Town Center CID, and it was recommended by the board that we consult with them to offer an opportunity for a site visit and further discussion. Several emails and phone calls later to the Town Center CID has warranted no response. Another balloon study was performed weekend before last where a balloon at 35-foot height, which is the height of the proposed ground sign, was installed. Photos and videos were taken to provide proof that the ground sign, even at this proposed height, still did not have proper visibility from both Ernest Barrett and Cobb Parkway. Is that available so I can put photos on? Okay. As you can see in this photo, the balloon is at the 35-foot height, which is the top of the cabinet, and there's a lot of vegetation that will continue to grow. The study also revealed that within 5 years, the sign would not be visible due to the amount and height of vegetation and the only available installation area for this sign, due to the utilities, grade setback requirements, and other related items. Therefore, we have decided to retract the request for the proposed 35-foot tall ground sign at this time, but we would still like to pursue the additional wall sign in hopes it may gain some visibility and attraction on Ernest Barrett Parkway. The wall sign that we are seeking approval for is shown as D on the attachment shown above. I'll switch this up to this. In this photograph, this is just a snippet of the Discount Tire building that you can see, which is right behind the Flooring Atlanta sign. As you can see, the road slopes, it provides limited visibility, but it's our only opportunity to be able to market to traffic on Ernest Barrett. There's a very large billboard in the area, a Burger King sign, the Flooring Atlanta sign, and again, no opportunities to put ground signage in that area. I would humbly like to request that if the board provides a motion to approve the allowance of the additional wall sign, that there not be any stipulations that would prevent or limit the opportunity to explore a ground sign in the future. In this case, the topography of the parcel or adjacent parcel may change to allow a ground sign to be installed with limited visibility impacts at a later date. Thank you, board members, for your time today.
Thank you. Just a couple quick questions. So in the variance request, there was, the first variance had to do with an additional 67 square feet of wall sign area. I'm trying to remember exactly where that was located. Was that in the back, or is that?
It's on the side elevation. The rear elevation actually faces Ernest Barrett Parkway.
Oh, that's considered the rear? Okay, all right.
The front obviously faces the parking lot of the town center.
Okay.
So this would be on the elevation that faces the access road, the ingress egress into the shopping center.
So what you're proposing is going to be on that east side wall.
Yeah.
What was in the application, is that the same?
It is.
Okay, all right.
There's no
That was
changes
my
to the
question.
wall
Okay,
sign.
just want to make sure.
Yes.
Great. I'll tell you what, this is in District 1, so Mr. Beloin, I'm going to hand the reins over to you.
Thank you very much. So you indicated you had no discussion whatsoever with the Town Center CID folks, that you reached out and didn't really hear back?
Correct.
What's your understanding of the nature of their objection?
The height of the pole sign. There are billboards in the area, but those are billboards. My understanding is the height was a concern.
All right, and you're no longer seeking the pole sign today, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so all we're dealing with is a wall sign, right?
Yes.
One wall sign, is that correct?
One wall sign. There are 3 existing. We're asking for an additional wall sign to be installed to provide some visibility from Ernest Barrett Parkway, but we're hoping the board won't put stipulations that a variance couldn't be applied for ground signage should the topography change with trimming, reduced trees, things of that nature.
And you're concerned from Ernest Barrett, the additional visibility you're seeking relative to Ernest Barrett is for westbound traffic, is that correct, or eastbound? Which one?
It would be westbound,
So folks coming from 75, basically?
yes.
Okay. Now, can you go ahead and give us the visuals on what that'll look like again, what you're asking for today?
Sure. Do you actually want to see the sign drawing or just the
Yes,
location on the building?
Let's start with the sign drawing, then the elevation to get a perspective on that.
Sorry, wrong set of drawings. On the screen above is a location of where that sign would be placed. It is known as D on this plan.
Okay. All right, so to be on the side of the building that faces to the east, correct?
Yes,
Would it be, and it would be at the top of the building, at the top of the second floor of the building?
it would be.
Okay. And it would just be Discount Tire in red as indicated there? That's what it would look like?
Correct.
And the size of that sign would be what?
.30-inch letters. They're 30-inch channels letters as 73.88 square feet.
Okay. Now, tell me what your understanding is as to why you needed this variance relative to the current sign ordinance. Is it due to the total number of signs you have on the building? Is that the issue?
Quantity and exceeding the square allowance.
Okay. And total square footage allowance, is it presently 200 or something different?
I think it's 49, isn't it?
I'd have to add up all the current wall signs that are on the property.
I'm checking to see, the ordinance may have changed.
John, isn't it 49? Wall signage?
Has changed since this was first submitted to the board for their consideration. It is not 49 square feet anymore. It's been raised up to a higher number.
Right.
And, I'm not sure what they have in their application, because the way it's worded to allow an additional 67.2 square feet of wall sign. So whatever's allowed plus 67.2 is what she's asking for. And she probably has that number.
Could we just simply authorize her as needed to put up the one wall sign she's indicated to the extent of variance is needed? Would that suffice?
So we need an exact number.
I was going to say, I think, Jennifer, didn't you have a square footage number? Didn't you say
Yes.
78?
I just added up the existing square footage is 195 square feet. There may have been a change in the size or it could have just been a clerical error on my part for the requested amount, but it is 73.85 square feet that we are seeking for approval.
Okay.
That would take that well over 200 square foot of wall signage.
All right, and just to be clear, you're no longer asking for a freestanding sign that was shown as variance number 3 in our book, correct?
Correct.
You're no longer asking for a pylon rather than a ground-based monument-style sign, correct?
Correct.
So I can delete request number 4 altogether. Increasing the maximum sign height to 35 feet, I can delete that as well, correct?
Correct.
Allow the proposed pylon sign to be 6 feet 9 inches from the side property line, which I did appreciate, but I can delete that as well, correct?
Correct.
And perhaps I can just simply consolidate numbers 1 and 2 to state that we're allowing a variance to allow a 78-foot sign. Are you saying I have to specifically say such that they're given 67.62 square feet over and above the otherwise allowable amount of wall signage?
Well, and first, before I answer that, let me clear this up. So the only variance they're asking for now is number 1. All the other variances here go away.
Yeah.
So variances 2 through 6 are no longer needed.
Right.
Okay. All right. I think I'm ready to make a motion, and I can
Okay.
dispose of this. However, some of my fellow board members may have some questions for the applicant.
Barkley, you good? We're ready
Okay.
for your motion then, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my motion would be that we grant variances 1 and 2,
Not
but I'm sorry, just number 1.
Right.
Simply number 1, that we delete proposed variances number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And just to be completely clear in my motion, that the request has been made for additional east-facing wall sign that is 78 square feet, and that additional sign is specifically allowed. So that's my motion to approve that variance as stated.
John, does that sound good to you?
Yes.
Great. All right, we've got a motion, second. We got a second. Any further discussion needed? All right, we'll call for a vote. Everybody in favor, please raise your hand. All right, the motion passes on a 3-0 vote.
Thank you, board
Thank
members.
you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Peterson, you ready for the next case?
All right, next case is variance case V25, Ruben Martinez, request of variance to number 1, allow an accessory structure, which is an 834 square foot canopy to be located to the side of the principal building. Number 2, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for a 834 square foot canopy from required 100 feet to 72 feet adjacent to the front property line, 3.4 feet adjacent to the north property line, and to 95 feet adjacent to the rear property line. Number 3, reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure over 144 square feet for a 593 square foot canopy from required 40 feet to 37 feet. Number 4, reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure over 144 square feet for a 571 square foot shed and overhang from required 40 feet to 5 feet. And number 5, allow access to the 593 square foot or square feet canopy not to be on a hard and treated surface in land lot 128 of the 19th district. The property is located at the northern terminus of Limerick Court, north of Emerald Drive. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V25? Okay. Mr. Board and Mr. Chairman Board, there is one person here opposed. I would ask the applicant and any opposition to come forward to be sworn in.
You want it? Oh, do I want to? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
If I could ask you both to give us your name for the record?
My name is Ruben Martinez.
Okay,
My name is Rosalina Baez.
okay. You guys, I know, came last month to present, and we wanted to encourage some discussion in the meantime, so you've got 10 minutes to present or update us on your case.
Well, on my case, we are presenting this for the permit for our canopies. And that's all. You guys have all the information. From last meeting, you guys wanted to hear from my neighbor. ¿Cómo se llama?
Yeah, we were thinking that your neighbor was out of town or something, but we wanted to
Yes.
encourage some kind of conversation in the meantime. But you've not had a chance then to talk?
No, we never talked.
Okay.
So I want to hear what he got to say about it.
Okay, so you have 10 minutes to,
I got
refresh
nothing
our
to say.
memories or anything?
Well, this was on the last hearing, we talked about it. I had my company there for this past year. And I was planning to move, so I already moved. I have another location. So I'm no longer having anything, no equipment, nothing on the property. So that's it.
Okay. I seem to recall there was a conversation about whether or not you needed all the canopies and the one on
Well, the canopy, the one is close to his house, if it needs to be moved, I'm willing to remove it. But the other ones, I use it and I need it, so.
So you're saying the one, the larger one is the one,
No.
The larger
or
one,
is it-
that one I need.
so
The one is on the,
That one.
that one
north
right
end of the
there.
property? Yeah, okay.
That one, it can be removed if it needs to be removed.
Okay.
Reason why it needs to be removed, I like to hear it. My shed, well, I use for storage, so that'd be it.
Okay, you still got over 7 minutes.
I'm fine, sir.
We may be back, I guess, with some questions after we hear from the opposition.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Could you please
afternoon.
give us your name for the record?
My name is Jan Milligan.
Okay.
I own the property that is adjacent to the back of his property. He's already answered some of the
Can you
questions.
just point out exactly where, that, is that one?
Okay, right
is that
there.
it?
Yeah,
Okay, got
that's
it.
our property right there.
All right.
And we have a history that goes back a long ways with the zoning and the operation of equipment early in the morning and all of that, but since apparently he says that has been done, when that particular structure was erected, I talked to him over the fence, and I didn't have a problem with it because he says it was going to be temporary. That was 8 or 10 years ago. Now it has lights in it and everything. If he would move, that's our only complaint, is they would move that to be within whatever accordance is with the property lines, because it literally looks right over our fence. When people come to work there, they stand on the equipment. Of course, that's not going to happen anymore. Then we have no problem other than that. So I just asked that he would do that, and that'd be fine. We haven't had any problems other than that
Okay.
forever. Okay.
So you've got almost 9 minutes. I mean, I think I understand what your point is. Anything else you want to share with us?
No, all the other matters that have to do with trees and things are not for this board.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Milligan. All right. Well, again, this case falls into District 1, so Mr. Bloin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Milligan, if I could get you to come back up, just so I understand precisely what your concerns are, what we need to address, and what your concerns aren't as well.
One of my concerns was what you voiced earlier, was if he's not going to be having this business operating from his property, why does he need all the buildings? That was a concern. Since we went to the zoning board 15 or so years ago and asked them, is this proper? I didn't even complain about it. I just said, can this? Apparently they came in and said no, and all that stuff removed, and it stopped for quite a long time. Now we're back again. My concern is that if it's still there, are we going to be back here again later?
So you have, our staff here has provided a visual for us. If you can look at that, you can see it up there as well. You see in the yellow line, first of all, maybe you can help me just identifying direction. Is north as shown here? Is your property north?
That's pretty good, pretty roughly north, yeah.
All right, so let's not start with your property. Let's start with the property to the west.
Okay.
There's some sort of structure up against the property to the west. First of all, what kind of a structure is
It's
that?
that's not where your pointer is.
It's-
Down
no,
further, it's down,
It's
it's
further,
down
right there.
there.
That's it, yes.
It's a shed. That's all,
Okay.
my best description of it.
All right, do you know what it's used for?
I don't. I see, he used to have equipment and stuff in there. I used to see him working in there, but I don't really know what it's used for.
Okay.
But that's not my property line to the left of that.
I understand. Does any activity in that shed bother you in any way?
Well, when I hear, our problem was that all the equipment started up very early in the morning, sometime as early as 6:30 or so, and it went on for quite a while sometime, all the mowers, I'm assuming sharpening blades, because we can hear that, and the compressor with the, sounds like a NASCAR thing. But it's early in the morning, and I don't know where that happened.
What do you think some reasonable restriction would be on the use of lawn equipment or other?
Well, he's not using it to cut his grass.
I
He's using it
understand.
for his business. And as far as I can say, when I looked it up in the Cobb County, the storing of equipment is against the rules. All business activities must occur inside the home. They're not. Outside employees are permitted to work. I've seen, people show up over there with all the equipment. Now, he said it was just his son, and if that's the case, I have no argument with that, but.
Okay, so I understand how to handle the no commercial use restriction. You've indicated there's a specific use of power equipment very early in the morning.
Right.
And what I'm asking is, first of all, what kind of power equipment's been used? And then secondly, what kind of restriction do you think would be reasonable regarding hours of operation of that type of equipment on the property?
Well, whatever the laws of Cobb County say, if he's allowed to do it at 6:30 in the morning, and that's his business, and that's fine. But power equipment, as far as I can tell, it's engines. I don't know. I'm assuming it's lawnmowers. Other than that, I don't know.
Okay. I'll deal with that as best I can then. Let's move to the structure adjoining or nearest to your property line.
Yeah.
What do you understand that structure to be used for?
Well, he has been using it. That's where he would store lawnmowers. He has trucks parked in there, trucks with trailers, all kinds of yard equipment type things. We can hear them come and go in the morning, come and go in the evening. We come back in the evening. And that's what he parks under there, as far as I can tell. He would better be able to answer that, I think.
Okay. Does the existence of the structure in and of itself bother you?
The closeness to the property line does, yes.
All right. Let's move down to the structure nearest to the diagonal line. Anything about that structure that bothers or offends you in any way?
No, that's not my property line there. That's the other neighbor.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to tell us at this time?
No, very good.
Good. Thank you very much. Now I can go back to the applicant.
Okay, could the applicant please come forward?
His daughter. So welcome back for the second month and for the second time up here. So today, my recollection from last month, and I apologize in advance if my memory is failing me, but my recollection is that you advised that your son has a commercial facility located within 10 miles of your property, of your house, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And that you don't need to make commercial storage use out of this property, is that correct?
Not anymore.
Okay. To address the concerns of your neighbor about noise, early in the morning and late at night, would you agree that we could put some restrictions on the use of outdoor equipment at during certain hours?
I do accept that because sometimes in the mornings around 7, after 7, never start or before that. We used to move the equipment from one truck to another truck, and we leave to go do the work. And this was a rough time where we had this. That's why we moved back home. So right now we are moving another location, so we don't have nothing there.
Okay, good. Would it be reasonable for me to say that no outside equipment will be used before 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday and before noon on Sunday? Would that be reasonable?
That's reasonable.
And again, that no outdoor equipment be used after, say, 8 p.m. on any day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are you willing to remove the one building nearest to to Mr. Milligan's property?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what's the square footage? Do you know out of all these, maybe I could go over that with staff. Do you know the size of that structure as opposed to the other structure in the back? 591 to the north? Thank you. Okay. You can have a seat. Thank you. I'm ready to go ahead and make a motion. And before I do, I'm sorry, I apologize. Mr. Chairman and fellow board member, if you may have had some questions I failed to address.
Actually, I think you covered it for me.
Okay, thank you. Feeling like a better adult learner now. Mr. Peterson, if you could tell me, other than deleting number 5, and which other number can I delete from the variance request in addition to number 5?
Number 3. So it'll be 3 and 5 could be deleted if that building goes away.
Okay. Thank you then. In that case, my motion will be that we Move to grant the variance as requested with the exception of the fact we're going to delete variance request numbers 5 and 3 as recommended by staff, and that we're going to specifically condition the grant of these variances on the removal of the shed or canopy structure nearest to the northern property line, that we're also going to condition the grant of these variances on no commercial use being made of the property, and that we're going to restrict the hours of operation for outdoor equipment to 8 a.m. through 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 12 noon through 8 p.m. on Sunday will be the only times that outdoor equipment is to be used on the property. Is there something I need to add to that, sir?
Yes. You know, as far as the building we're going to take down, can we get a time frame for that when it has to be removed?
Thank you. I'll recommend 60 days unless someone else has I want to give the gentleman a reasonable time, so let's say 60 days. So that'll be my motion.
Great. Thank you very much. Do we have a second? We've got a second. Call. Any further discussion? All right, call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, we have a vote to approve, 3-0. Thank you guys very much. And we are on to the next case, Mr. Peterson.
Okay. Variance case V42, Bruce Longmire requested a variance to allow an accessory structure, which is a proposed 616 square foot garage to be located to the side of the principal building in land lot 36 of the 16th district. The property is located on the east side of Gunner's Run, north of Old Mountain Park Road. The applicant is present, and earlier there was one person here opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Hope you're doing well. Could you please state your name for the record?
My name is Bruce Longmire.
Great. All right, Mr. Longmire, you've got 10 minutes to explain your case to us.
I want to build a garage next to my house.
Okay.
And I've already got a slab there. All I have to do is dig it up and pour a footer. I could, if you look to the right of my house, I've got enough land to put it up between the gentleman that's complaining or opposing this. I could put it behind, up to the right. You see where you need to come down with the arrow? Right there. I could put my garage right there. I've got 12 goats that was delivered today to clean that out. Mm-hmm. So I could put it there, overlooking his backyard and his windows and everything else. But my first choice is next to my building, my house. Pretty much that's pretty simple. My neighbor and I do not get along.
So can you tell us a little bit more about it? Is this going to be like a two-car structure? Or do you have any?
I've got a 20-foot boat, bass tracker. I love to fish. I want to put it in there. I've got a trailer I want to put in there. It's just for storage. I want to get it out of the weather. That's all. It's not no cars, just storage.
Got it. And do you have any kind of renderings of what it might look like?
It is going to be prefab. It's going to have gray sides, brown trim. It's going to look just like my house.
All right. And if you were to relocate it in the back, do you know if any variances would be required?
There will be no variance. All I need is a building permit.
Okay.
So I won't be arguing with him.
Okay.
But I will be looking over his backyard.
Yeah, I understand. I just want to make sure I understand what some of the options are here in terms of topography and then, yeah.
Yeah, we did have a COVID, in the subdivision I live in, we had a COVID and bylaws. But 2 years ago, they let it lapse. So we have no bylaws and we have no covenants in my subdivision as of 2 years ago. And so I can go ahead and do it. Like I said, I got 12 goats that were delivered this morning.
Before we hear from the opposition, I'm just wondering, have you spoken directly with them about
This gentleman?
what you're wanting to do, here
No.
and then?
No,
what
I
your
sent him a
options
letter.
Okay.
And I had the post office stamp it, that y'all have a copy of the.
Yeah, I was just wondering if
stamp.
you all had a chance to kind of
No, I
talk through
never see
anything.
him. Never talked to him.
Okay. Anything else that we need to know? You've still got 7.5 minutes.
Like I said, we don't get along. I mean, he cut a hole in my fence, and he's done some things I don't appreciate. I had a fence up, a wire fence, because if you look at the property, there's a waterway in the front of my property and on the other property next to me that I purchased, and it's a waterway. And I have a wire fence to let the water go through. Well, he put up a wooden fence. And once he put up that wooden fence, it restricts the flow of water.
Yeah,
And he cut my fence.
got it. That's kind of
But that's
scope for
different.
what we got to do
But
here.
I'm just saying-
Yeah,
I'm
I
just saying-
appreciate, yep, and I understand. So if you don't have anything more, we'll go ahead then and
That's fine.
hear from your opposition, and thank you very much. Hello,
Hey, good afternoon.
if you could give us your name, please?
Sure, first name Carson, last name Mathis.
Carson Mathis, okay? Go ahead, Mr. Mathis.
I just had a couple of questions. I'm not necessarily in opposition of what's being built. I just wanted to understand more about what was going on. There was kind of a limited information that I received in the mail. So it's a 600 square foot structure being constructed. Is it going to be behind, I'm just curious where it's going to land. I think I understand now after the explanation that Bruce provided, where it's going to sit. I don't really have any questions about that. I was curious to understand what the variance was being requested of, like what's the
Okay.
stated
All right,
language.
fair enough.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from what I gathered, right where the cursor is the location of the,
Right.
right?
That's what I understood too.
Okay, all right. What other questions do you have?
I'm just curious why he's having to file for a variance.
It's because it's to the side of the primary.
Okay, is it going to sit
structure.
behind the front plane of the house?
But the drawing shows that maybe one corner is, I can't be precise, John, I don't know if you know, but it looks like, for the most part, it will sit to the side.
Okay.
I don't think, it won't be in front of or
Yeah.
anything.
And it'll be clad to match the existing structure?
That's what
That's
I
what understood.
understood.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No other opposition there then?
Okay.
Yep.
The representative from District 3 is not with us today. Normally, we would defer to him. I am feeling like we can probably move ahead, but I don't want to make that decision alone. I'd like to hear from my fellow board members, if you would like to weigh in, please.
I think it's fine, since it's just really a clarification from the gentleman that came up to speak, but we thought in opposition. And I know Brian, I think he'd be fine with this, because it's matching I think matching the house is the biggest point that he would have. So I'm good with it.
Mr. Chairman, if this were in District 1, in light of the comment made, I would just want to know that the applicant's willing to use the same siding on the house, or on the garage that he's used on his house.
Yes.
Got it.
Same siding, same roof.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we'll go ahead and let you, go ahead, please come up to the podium, if you would.
The building is going to be next to my house. It's not in front of my house at all. And it's going to have the same colors as my house.
And siding, or
And
whatever?
siding.
Okay. All
It's a
right.
prefab, it's a metal building,
Got it.
and it's just for storage.
Okay. So that's probably going to be a stipulation that we make
Yeah, I
in
mean, it's.
approving it.
it's
Okay.
like- I mean, they come in all different colors nowadays. And the one that I've looked at is compared to my house.
Got it.
But it's not in front of my house, it's on the side.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you very much. All right, well, if everybody's comfortable moving forward, then I would entertain a motion to, anybody? I don't know if I can.
Okay, I just want to be sure I do it right. I'm new at this game.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the request for variance and include that it must be compatible to the design and in coloring in the house. Does that work?
Sound good? Good. Second? Or any
Yeah,
further comment?
I second it with that,
Okay.
with the additional comment as a condition.
Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Any further discussion? All right, call for vote. All in favor, please raise your hands. All right, again, we've got a 3-0 vote to approve. Thank you guys very much. And I think we're on to our last case, are we not, Mr. Peterson?
Yes. Variance case V50, Clint Patterson requests a variance to, number one, allow a self-service storage facility to have a flat roof rather than a gable roof, and number two, increase the maximum allowable height from 1 story or 25 feet to parapet wall to 3 stories or 40 feet to the parapet wall in land lots 1 and 2 of the 20th District. The property is located at the southwest corner of Rutledge Road and Black Acre Trail on the west side of Cobb Parkway. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to this case? No. We do have one person opposed, so I would ask the applicant and any opposition to come forward to be sworn in.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, folks.
How are you doing? If you could
good.
please give us your name.
Yes, my name is Clint Patterson. I'm with the Sterling Group out of Indiana, and we are under contract to purchase this 3.5 acre property located on North Cobb Parkway, located in District 1. Are you going to flip or you want me to? Perfect. Awesome. And so that didn't show up very well. I'm not sure why. But I just wanted to outline. Is that how it's showing up on yours? That's not a very good picture. Good way to start off here. This is a 3.5 acre irregular shaped property, to say the least. You also have several different buffers natural buffers that you're working through. As mentioned, the 2 variance requests, the one came in late Friday, apparently about the gabled roof. As opposed to a flat roof with a parapet. I won't call it a true flat roof because it's sloped to the back of the property or interior to the property to catch stormwater, as opposed to gable roofs that are spitting water or shedding water in typically 4 different ways. And so that's typically, in my experience in developing and building over 40 of these, that's why we've done it the way we have. And then I'm also seeking to increase the maximum height allowed on this particular property with the zoning as it exists. The maximum height within this HI zone district is actually 50 foot. For some reason, there was no update to the code in 1999 that calls for the maximum height to be 25 foot to top of parapet in HI for self-storage only. So that gives you a little bit of background on these variances. This is a little cleaner picture to give you an idea, kind of its proximity. Again, I know Cobb covering so much area, it's hard to know exactly where this is unless you're living in the area or have driven by the site in particular. So you'll see down, is my pointer's there? Okay, so Cedar Crest is down to the south. As you come up, you've got Wellstar, which is a new multi-level development, obviously medical development to the right. You've got a church just past that that's relatively newer. And then as you get up to the stoplight at 5043 North Cobb Parkway, it's kind of an odd intersection there with Black Acre and Rutledge. And that's the property, again, that I'm under contract to purchase. Again, just wanted to give everybody the opportunity to get their bearings on that. This is the surrounded developed property. What I will say is obviously there's been, as most of you know more than me even, there's been some sanitary growth stunt issues out there, and I believe most of that has been taken care of now. But I would say that is probably why this area has been I guess I won't say it's non-developed, but it's just now starting to turn as far as these properties being sold and developers coming into the immediate area. Again, kind of talk about these. If you look at the ordinance, whether it be the TS, which is properties next to me, HI, as I'm currently zoned, the property to the rear, all of them speak to fitting in with the surrounding developed properties. So we don't have a whole lot to choose from out there because there is stuff that's still undeveloped. But when you're looking at some of these newer properties, the Wellstar, the church, for example, they are flat roof type structures. They aren't gabled. You've got the two smaller I guess, auto shops that would be in the bottom left corner and kind of the center of the property that are, again, auto workshops, flat metal, and then you've obviously got some of the stuff that's a little bit newer on either side. This is the site plan here, which shows you've got the top building there that's up against Cobb Parkway, which would be, call it plan north of the on the site plan there, which is our 3-story structure that we're proposing. Again, all of the entry is off the back of the property, and that's where the customers would enter through gates and come in, be able to have the loading zone there, and then go in and access the elevators, or if their unit is on the first floor, they could obviously just walk right to it. There is traditional drive-up non-climate self-storage that you'll see there around or in the rear, the back 2 buildings that are there. And then you've got some boat and RV parking due to the demand and the need with the lakes in the immediate area. You will also see, and it's called out on a secondary slide here, down to Plan South, the natural buffer that I'm not asking for a variance to work in. I'm not grading in it. Any of those items, we are playing within the setbacks of this. What I'm simply asking is that I'm allowed to build today's self-storage as opposed to yesterday's self-storage. This is the 3-story building elevation that would sit up at the front. You've got a brick ephes. The parapets, again, I know an elevation does not look like the real thing. I did want to show this. I also, I spoke with Ms. Diaz of DOT as there was a comment regarding basically triggering a 40-foot height and the airports in the surrounding area. We don't have any issues with the airports, but what I did talk to my architect about was lowering and dropping that parapet. I think I can get between 38 and 39 foot as opposed to 40 even. 40 is just typically the benchmark we use, and then if we have issues, we can work off of that. This is a similar designed product that we've built. Again, gives you a heck of a lot better interpretation of what you're going to be looking at out there in this multi-million-dollar investment that I'm trying to put into the community here. This gives a little bit of the zoning overview. You can see up and down Cobb being heavily commercial or industrial in some cases. And then you've got my property's the property that's kind of gotten the golden outline with the purple there on it up above where you can see where Rutledge and 41 connect there would be the property that's in question here. So just a little bit to, I guess, bring everyone onto the same page. Heavy industrial zoning, the purpose and intent, we all know this is a heavily industrial, intense, chemicals, anything that you can imagine typically is allowed in H1 heavy industrial. And my self-storage facility is probably the least intense use there is from a commercial or an industrial standpoint, from a traffic generation standpoint, and anything else in between. From the landscaping buffer, again, I'm not asking for any variances whatsoever on the landscape stuff. I'll end up being over landscaped because we anticipate this to be a Class A marquee property for my team to own and manage for years to come. I did point out from the ordinance there that the maximum building height in NHI is 50 foot. Again, we're going to be 10 to 12 feet underneath that. Which again, I continue to wonder how we got here. But then this speaks to the buffer area again on the rear of the property, which as you work down Rutledge, let's call it Plan West, you get into more estate lots, residential lots, and so I do understand the concern and the need not to build to the property line or encroach in that area to create and keep those natural buffers. I will also say that the gentleman that I'm purchasing this dirt from owns that property immediately adjacent to the property. I'm not purchasing that. I have no intent of ever developing it. It is zoned R30.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to let you know you got a minute
Okay.
left.
Okay. So let me work through this. You can see the heavy industrial allowable uses. Again, from a intensity standpoint, self-storage is probably not even on the list. Your neighboring properties are zoned TS, which is tourist services. Building maximum height 50 foot. The look is supposed to be like kind to those around you. Again, you talk about those uses, automotive stuff, more heavily intense uses than whatever I'm proposing here at this point. You've got R30 to the rear, and at that point, this R30 actually allows for several commercial uses that are not just residential, single family, and I wanted to point that out to make sure that everybody knew that we're not going into a residential neighborhood here.
Sorry,
this is a commercial district.
Your time is up.
Sure.
Is there much more that you've got?
No, again, my next comments were to address the staff items for Ms. Diaz, which actually were handled earlier today. So my last stuff here is what I'm requesting, and I'm good to go.
I'll tell you what, I know we're going to be back to you anyway.
Sure.
I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to
I have.
At this point, okay. So we'll probably be bringing you back up here in a minute. But
Yep.
We'll go ahead and turn it over then to the opposition.
And by the way, I just thought I could use everybody else's time since they were quick.
All right. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I am Teresa Stendahl, and I have been a homeowner at 5850 Altree Church Road for the last 46 years. So I have seen a lot of change. For a black and white analysis, my comments are not to be opposed to self-storage. I do think the intensity or the less intense use is appropriate for this particular corridor. What's not being perhaps considered is the fact that with this application coming in as a variance, as opposed to an other business item to the BOC, there is not a full staff review, particularly in light of the fact that there was a corridor study that was approved by the board in 2014. That was initiated by a rezoning for property along Cobb Parkway that resulted in the Wellstar Health System, Health Park, and Cedar Crest Church. And I'm not sure that anybody in this room understands that better than I do, because I am now the next door neighbor of Wellstar. If you want to say that things have changed, you have no idea how much they have changed. However, not to have full staff review, particularly in light of the Northwest Vulnerability Land Analysis that was approved by the board, and the future land use plan that is a result of that. Yes, the HI zoning of this particular parcel is a valid zoning. There is no question. But when do you discuss, or when do you take into account the future land use plan as a development guide for this entire corridor? And that study was put in place for the protection of Lake Allatoona. Yes, there is supposed to be limited commercial along Cobb Parkway. What this self-storage facility location does, though, even on that HI parcel, what it creates is access only from a local residential road, of which there are only 7 homes on Rutledge. At the original rezoning from 1992, there were two access points, one from Rutledge and one from Blackacre. And if you sat at the intersection today at Third Army, Blackacre, Cobb Parkway, and if you were on Third Army and went straight across Cobb Parkway into this facility at Blackacre, that would make more sense than having the only access be strictly from Rutledge Drive. Furthermore, in 1992, there was not a lot of traffic coming in from Paulding County. There wasn't a lot of traffic on Cobb Parkway. We didn't have traffic signals. We didn't have massive, traffic flow. A concern of many people in the area is, what do you do with the traffic? It's a dangerous intersection to begin with. So while it is allowable, it is a less intense use. I would also like to remind this board that the only three-story structure on Cobb Parkway within this northwest corridor is Wellstar, and it maxes out at 77,000 square feet for the health park. I don't know how much with this three-story facility. I don't know the total square footage. The previous plan that was approved back in 1992 was 45,000 square feet. Intensity of use isn't always just the use itself, but the square footage. And will this corridor develop? Yes. How it will develop will be governed primarily by the guidelines of the Northwest Vulnerability Study and the future land use plan. So I would hope that this board will take that into account, that it is, if it's going to proceed as a variance, rather than an other business item before the board, that this be taken into account. Strictly the fact that access not being from Cobb Parkway, I think changes the conversation of whether or not this is really in a commercial node, because quite honestly, according to the Cobb County Code, this is not a commercial node. It is not on the perimeter of a commercial node. This is literally access from a local residential road for which people have invested quite a bit of money for their estate-sized lots. This is an investment in the area, but to perceive that this entire corridor, the balance of the Northwest corridor, is going to develop in this same way, I think is something that is yet to be determined.
Thank you. Before you go, just a real quick question for you.
Sure.
I want to make sure I understand obviously you threw a lot out there, and by the way, you've still got 4 minutes left. Your biggest concern then is the access?
I think the access changes the conversation relative to it being, a commercial node, an HI district, as opposed to the fact that the only access being proposed now is on Rutledge Drive, which is totally local, totally residential.
Got it. I just want to try to crystallize a lot of what you were saying, though, in terms of your concerns, though, that access is kind of the top concern.
Well, I think the access is important. If the access was from Cobb Parkway, I think you can have a more commercial node conversation. Also, there was some email threads going around that I believe were supposed to be sent to the BZA relative to comments that I have sent to the commissioner and also to Commissioner Gambrell. That my understanding is perhaps you have not gotten those emails. I did not get a copy of the Z31 site plan until about 10:30, 11 this morning, so kind of behind the 8 ball here. There's a lot of information, but our corridor study is critical. It is unique to corridor studies within Cobb County. Yeah. If we are going to ignore it and totally ignore any future land use plan in the area, then we're all history out there.
All right, and that's fair. The one concern I would have, and I'll have to defer to DOT on this one, is just access on that Blackacre and what it might do with its proximity to the intersection, but I'm going to leave that to the experts. So thank you, though, for your comments. Again,
the only reason I pointed that out is if you look at the original rezoning from 1992 of Z31, that's exactly, they had 2 access points. That's where I picked that up.
Fair enough. Thank you for your comments. All right. Well, again, this one falls in Fred's district, so Fred, I'm going to turn it over to you.
You're doing very well, Mr. Chair. Would you like to continue?
Deflect.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead and move to Amy Diaz and the DOT. And as you're coming up, Amy, let me just indicate that I did speak this morning with both Ms. Stendahl and with the applicant. And I think everybody would love it if we could possibly get at least an entrance on Highway 41, but I think you're going to tell me for some reason we can't.
Amy Diaz, DOT. So because of the proximity to the signal, I would not anticipate that GDOT would grant such an access, but that would be ultimately up to them because that is their roadway.
How long does that process take?
It really depends on their responsiveness. Sometimes you can turn a conversation with them around in a couple of weeks, but sometimes it takes a good bit longer.
Do you have friends there? I know some people that used to work there. Would that help? Let's see. What would be required in order to make such an application to the Georgia DOT? Just a phone call inquiry, or is it a more formal process?
No, they would need a driveway permit to get another access onto 41, and so they would basically start that process with the Georgia Department of Transportation.
So the applicant would file a driveway permit in order to get entrance-only access from 41?
Yes, for any kind of access, entrance, exit, or two-way.
And I think you've told us before, or maybe that was the PC, you've told us before that recently Cobb County has decided to move away from acceleration lanes?
It's not been within the last year or anything that recent. It started before I came to the county in 2016. But older designs, you will see the acceleration lanes, and we do not use them now.
Okay. So my concern, before I even finish this line of questioning regarding a possible entrance into this facility off of 41, how realistic is it to have an entrance only off of 41 and not have people try to jump that and jump back on 41 in U-Haul trucks, for example, not to mention a storage competitor or anything like that?
It really depends on the design. Looking in the area, I don't think that they can use the existing median. I believe the median is south of them, so that means that the design is more difficult to truly prohibit any kind of movement. The median is the only way to absolutely prohibit that kind of movement. But when you have one-way flow like that and somebody thinks that they can go the wrong way, it is a concern. It's one of the reasons why we prefer two-way driveways.
Okay. What other review, if any, has the DOT made regarding access points on this property?
So looking at Blackacre, that distance from the signal to the intersection with Rutledge is around 200 feet or so. There's a curve there, so it's a little hard to be precise, but it is definitely too close to have a full movement access between that signal and the existing Rutledge intersection. If you had the driveway there, left turns into the development would basically backflow traffic back to the signal. And so that's not something that we want to see happen. Based on that, it's our position that the Rutledge Drive driveway location is the appropriate one because it moves it from that traffic flow.
So you were just saying Blackacre is not necessarily viable. It wouldn't get approval from
No, it would not be recommended.
Okay.
A note on the prior plan, there was a 24-foot drive out onto Blackacre. That was 1992.
Yes, and traffic may have been lower in the area. I'm not sure if that intersection was signalized back then, and that might have been part of it, certainly before my time in reviewing these cases.
Fair to say traffic has grown substantially since 1992 in that area?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about traffic in that area, if you would. I see Third Army Road there.
Yes,
And so that is a signalized intersection now, right?
correct.
And Third Army moves roughly from carries traffic from 75 over in this direction and on to Paulding County through Blackacre, is that Is that correct?
I believe that connection is something that people can do, yes. A lot of the traffic obviously does turn on to and from US 41 at that location, but there is still traffic that queues on Blackacre.
Anything else you can tell us in terms of how to minimize accidents, maximize beneficial traffic flow? Anything we should know?
So we have been in discussion with the applicant to make sure that they had that, our standard minimum uninterrupted access, it's one of our comments, to make sure that they basically don't have traffic, their turning movement traffic at the intersection at Rutledge is far enough from any parking spaces or any travel flows within their site, so that improves safety for their development. Rutledge Drive is a local roadway, but it's not necessarily residential only. Looking at the land uses on this end of Rutledge Drive, it would be a local commercial and then transitions to local residential as you move to the west.
Mr. Chairman, if anyone else on the board has
Amy, you
questions.
may not be able to answer this question, but the proposed entrance is across from what is currently Zone TS. Is that correct? Do you know?
According to the
Okay.
GIS, yes.
All right. I don't have any more questions for you, and I don't know, Marco, you have anything for Amy? Thank you.
Next, let me get back to the applicant next, if I could. And if you could find that.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz, for making yourself available for this and explaining that. And I'll take any other questions, and then I'll make a couple comments on that driveway cut.
I'd like you to. Let's talk about the driveway while we're on that issue, and especially those comments regarding a one-way access at all.
Yeah, I mean.
Is that something you have familiarity with elsewhere in some of your other properties at all?
No, typically, it's not one way. Typically, everything's in and out, but, I mean, you're in and out the same entrance. The one thing I will say, look, I mean, everybody could sit here and call me crazy if I said I didn't want access off Cobb Parkway. After I had the conversation with my engineer late this morning, actually on my way to this hearing, after a couple things were brought to my attention, he did some quick studies and work, and even if we move to the southernmost property line away from that stoplight right there, due to topography, you're about a 25-foot grade difference, and then you would not meet the minimum decel or taper lane that would be required from GDOT to get a driveway permit there. And again, folks, I would welcome a curb cut off of there. It would make things from a standpoint, actually, when you bought the property, I anticipated that that's where my curb cut would come from. We did do the studies to understand that that is a local commercial road, and that's due to the log jam that could be potentially created at Blackacre. That's why we've put it over there. Is it the most advantageous for marketing? Is it the most advantageous for any of those operational standpoints? It's probably not, but it's the safest. And I think we all have to agree that safety's probably first here. While I'd love to make sure this is an A+ deal, we've got to worry about safety and people coming in and out of there with trailers and everything else that don't drive them on a regular basis. Right. And that would be my biggest concern as an owner-operator.
Yeah. That was my next question for you, given the fact that the times in my life where I found myself at a facility such as that you want to build, I would qualify as a very amateur driver of a vehicle I'm not usually behind the wheel of. So
Sure.
yes, I imagine you have a fair amount of issues dealing with that.
And that is one thing, though. And actually, can you go back to the PowerPoint? I don't want to keep my 10 minutes rolling here, but
No, you're off that clock now.
if you can get if you can get to here, and again, it's obviously not clear and zoomed in and everything, but understand that as an operator of these, we're looking at a way to make operations as efficient as possible. And so some of these storage facilities that you see today are narrowing down to 24 to 28 foot, if you will, in some situations. And before I step on my own foot, let me make sure that we've, again, this is clear that, I mean, these are 30-foot drive aisles to allow for movements through there. And then again, you're stacking, from a traffic standpoint, the kind of, I guess the nod in the industry would be that there are 6 vehicles per week per 100 units. So what it comes down to is basically 30 vehicles per week is the average in the industry for a 500-unit facility like something like this right here is going to be. We talk about traffic. I mean, there's more than 30 cars that make that turn right now every day. And this is, from an intensity standpoint, again, there's no safer, more secure use, in my opinion. And again, we're asking for a variance to, not on the entry point, we're asking for variances regarding what today's storage is with a 3-story building height and then being able to shed all that water back towards the property as opposed to pouring it into the right-of-way and having to capture it and recirculate it. So I feel, and again, I'm open to suggestions. If Amy and her team can come up with a way to work through up in that top point or that triangled area is where the detention is set to be. That is the lowest point before it jumps up roughly 25 foot into the right-of-way area. So I would certainly have to rework something if we felt that was the better move. But I don't believe there's an approval there that can be had.
Okay. So I appreciate your comments on that issue. Let's move to a second issue, and that is my understanding from the original. I went back to the 92 rezoning.
Certainly.
Where it got zoned HI, and that was for a 25,000 square foot building in one location. I believe there was a second building at that time, 15,000. So it was for actually 29,000 and 15,000. So a total of 44,000 square feet. Can you tell me about how many square feet your proposal would bring us?
We're going to be, gross square footage is going to be between 75 and 80,000. Net rentable will be roughly 58 to 60,000. I will say that we vetted that during the early stages of our layouts and me getting this property under contract and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on design work. And this zoning was not plan specific to those HI buildings. And I did confirm that with Mr. Peterson. And so I did want to bring that up, is that it was zoned with no real stipulation other than the fact that it was zoned HI and that there needed to be a brick or stone on the front of the property.
Right.
And if there's more that Mr. Peterson would like to shed light on, he's obviously the expert, not myself.
Sure. So I just went back through, and amazingly, Murray Homan was on this 1992 board, or rather, planning commission that originally approved these stipulations or conditions, and he was on this group until about 2 to 3 months ago. So we all know Murray. But in any event, so they said a 50-foot natural buffer along the western property line, and you still have that, right?
That is correct, sir.
No change there. Buildings to be constructed with brick or rock fronts. I think you're showing a partial.
Yeah, it's brick and cementuous product, which I believe is allowed. If it's not, I'm certainly happy to update it to all brick. I mean, we can go two-tone brick and be happy with that. I will. My new friend Teresa and I did speak, and I will say that there was a comment about not going through site plan approval or whatever that might be. This all goes through site plan approval, so don't think what I'm submitting is getting approved. I mean, this is obviously being vetted by every department and fully and thoroughly meeting the guidelines of today's stuff. What we're here today to discuss is 2 simple items, not a zoning change, not a use change, any of that stuff.
And Let's go ahead and just show the plan. Did I give you the plan, or do I need, let me give you that. So this was the plan that was submitted to and apparently approved by the 1992 board, showing a detention pond area. Do you know about detention ponds on your proposal?
I certainly do, yeah. It would
Can you
be
speak
up
to that?
actually where that septic field is, and now what would be the lower, or the bottom right-hand side up there. And I don't know if I guess I can. Oh, okay. It would be right in this area is where our detention would actually be on this site now. We are paying the impact fee, and we'll connect to the water or the septic or the sanitary system that is provided by Cobb County. So we are paying those impact fees, which again, our use from that standpoint is very minimal at best. But I'm happy to contribute in order not to have septic fields on my site.
Understood. So that would be a change there. So the two biggest changes we have are the overall number of square feet and the fact you won't be using septic anymore. You'll be using sanitary sewer, right?
Yes. And Mr. Peterson, do you want to what I guess my thought was that it was not a plan-specific zoning?
Well, this hearing's really not set up for the applicant to ask questions from the podium.
Sorry.
Of different people in the room.
Sorry.
That's fine.
But I will answer that question.
I was going to turn around and ask you anyway, so.
The way the zoning minutes are is this is not plan-specific. So there's no maximum building square footage. There's no requirement for where the property gets access from, whether it's from Rutledge, Blackacre, or 41. It's just subject to those 6 pretty simple conditions that are on the property.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks for the comment. Given, I hope you'll appreciate my concerns in a minute, but
Certainly.
Let's move on to some other issues while we can. You and I agree that the character of Rutledge Road is primarily residential, low-intensity residential, large homes.
I do.
Very attractive homes, correct?
I do.
On significant sized lots. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
So my concerns that you and I addressed previous to today's hearing, and specifically this morning, included roof structure and your potential willingness to work on an alternative roof structure that might be more in keeping with what's there.
Yes, sir. I'm certainly happy to work on, and I think, and I would ask that that we give, I guess, direction to make sure that I don't have to come back here for that approval. But the gabled roof, I believe I have an example of something that was previously approved in and around the community that gives that gable on one corner that I think probably leads to more of a residential street and goes into more of that parapet roof on the commercial side of Cobb Parkway and everything else. And I would be happy to make that change to make it more welcoming on that Rutledge side.
Would you like to show that to us?
Well, yeah, if you want to pull it,
Okay.
can you pull it up on Google Earth? No, it's not on anything that I have.
We'll hold off on that then.
Okay.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
Let me ask another question, another issue. Given the fact that now there's going to, oftentimes what we do, usually on Planning Commission, not here at BZA, but we deal with some of these issues on BZA as well. We're concerned about when you have a residential area and a commercial area intersecting, or a retail in a residential area, we like undisturbed buffers. Your plan seems to show, or this old plan seems to show a bunch of, the problem is we have the 92 plan up here.
Yeah.
Why don't we get your plan back? There you go. So you're showing right up against Rutledge, you would effectively have some parking spaces, right?
Yes, it meets the setback requirement, and then, yes, but it would be, I'm happy to do an opaque type fence there, a black vinyl or something if necessary in that area. Typically, we do a decorative aluminum fence at the entry point, and then the facility is 100% secured, so there would be fencing completely around the facility, and typically at that point it goes to, again, it can be the black aluminum decorative fencing, but typically when we have the parking, we go to a more opaque solid fence, so it's not seen from the road.
Will there be room there for some sort of a landscape buffer as well, or no?
That is, zoom in, sorry. Maybe I can read it on this.
Looks like 8-foot landscape strip, right?
Yeah, I thought there was a landscape, yeah, there is. It calls it out there on the, is it an 8-foot landscape strip?
Yes.
Yeah, so that surrounds the Rutledge side down that whole property line, and again, typically to receive approvals, we have to end up over landscaping in those areas, so I would anticipate it.
What type of signage would you anticipate putting on this? You and I spoke earlier,
Yes.
and you talked about a monument sign of some kind, and could you give us the location and
Yep.
tell us about what it would be?
Yes, sir. So if you'll see right here in the picture, that's the monument sign we use. Both of those are the same size. Obviously, one's a closer up picture of the other facility, but that's the monument sign that I would anticipate using. I don't plan to. We never seek variances for signage. We work within the confinements of that zoning, and so that would be my anticipation of the sign, the monument sign, and then I would anticipate that to be up in that call it the Blackacre Rutledge area intersection is where I would probably have that set back off, and again, it's all due to topography and everything else, but that's where I would anticipate that to be.
Okay. Wow, I appreciate the bright colors, certainly giving some, commanding the attention of your customers. Is that anything you're willing to work with to tone down in order to kind of blend further with the residential nature of the?
Sure. I mean, look, if that's a stipulation, we'll play within the ball field. I'm not one that lights everything up in lime green and lime orange, or however you want to call those. But if that's a stipulation, I can certainly play within that arena. If it needs to be more neutral toned colors, which is really, again, what we shoot for. And as you can see in all three of those pictures, it's a very neutral palette as far as the red brick, the brown tones. The doors on the non-climate are forest green. So again, it's a very, I actually give our owner a hard time on that typically about the signage. So again, if it's something to calm that down, I would be happy to put that in the reading.
Okay. And my understanding from our conversation, you're not a developer flipper, you're a long-term buy, hold, manage operator?
That is correct. So we are fully integrated. We purchase, develop, and then own and manage the facility. It's not our intent to go out there and build this and move on down the road. Our folks that we employ for this facility, it will have a full-time leasing office and have a property manager, an assistant, and then a maintenance person. And it's run like a luxury apartment complex because that's our forte business-wise. And those office hours are typically Monday through Saturday. We call it 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. That way there's somebody in the office. But no, we do not intend to flip. We're a part of the chamber. We're people that invest in the community, not here to make a quick buck and walk away.
What is your understanding as to as to the number of trips per day for a storage usage like this, given the number of units you have?
So, again, the national average tells us, and I've been able to present this in several other cases across the southeast, that it is 6 vehicles per week per 100 units. So if you call this 500 units, I believe we're just at, or just, it's plus or minus 500 total units for this facility. And it would, in my calculations, would create roughly 30 vehicles per week for this facility when it's fully occupied, which again, I don't even think it's probably on the traffic generation from engineering. It's so low.
Any other questions for the applicant from anyone?
No, the landscaping we talked about was going to be along the Blackacre and then along Rutledge and in the back. Is that right? How about the?
So the very rear is a no disturbed. I don't ever. I mean, we'll put soil erosion up, and the guys go stand over there, and they're going to get in trouble. So.
Yeah. So, but basically on the other 2 sides, and then how about that south
So
side?
if
Again,
it calls,
that's residential on that side too, isn't it?
No, that's TS.
Oh, that is TS. You're right.
Yep.
Okay. You're right.
So we will meet whatever's over there. Again, it'll eventually be developed, so it's in our best interest to make sure that there's landscaping over there.
And then I'm not all that concerned about it, but do you have any renderings of the back 2 buildings? Just out of
I
curiosity?
don't with me. I can certainly provide those. They're 10 foot tall. They've got the gabled roof that shed to both sides, and I believe I have put the brick and ephes on the end caps of each of those buildings. So anything that was visible from the, and I'm happy to write that in, but any of the stuff that would be visible as you're driving, if you're driving 5 miles an hour on Rutledge, that could see through the decorative aluminum, you're going to see the nice finish as opposed to doors. As you can see from the site plan, I did not lay this out to show doors facing the roads,
right.
And tried to box all of that stuff in, which is what we typically try to do.
Okay.
The only thing I want to reiterate is I really would appreciate a softer coloring on your signs based on going into that residential neighborhood. I know you have branding, but
Hey, look,
Grab attention, I guess, right?
at the end of the day, that's small potatoes in this whole scope of things. So I'm happy to work with. I mean, if you guys say a neutral toned color that's to be approved by staff or whatever, then we'll work within those guidelines.
yeah. And I was pleased to see you do have landscaping around to buffer.
Again, I think I spoke to Mr. Beloin earlier regarding this. We take pride in the fact of these facilities that, a lady, anyone can go into this at 9 o'clock at night and feel safe. So when you have landscaping, when you have very clean, very secure, that's what everybody wants, safe and dry. And so those are very big, and again, you're a part of the community. You don't want to get a bad name for yourself, so the landscaping is key to these because they're not always aesthetically appealing.
A couple other questions came to my mind. Am I interrupting? No. A couple other questions came to my mind while I was listening to those questions. Do you know what the base elevation of each of these buildings would be as planned?
The base of would be
like relative to Rutledge Road. Is it going to sit down 10 feet below Rutledge, same level as Rutledge, 20 feet below Rutledge? Do you know?
Well, we're having to import almost 8,000 cubic yards of dirt to make sure the stormwater system works. So right now, there's a high point in the center of the site. It will get spread out, and my guess is we'll sit anywhere from I would call it probably 2 to 4 foot under Rutledge on those smaller buildings, and that's an estimate. But I'm happy to provide a grading plan when it's final to ensure that if that's going somewhere.
Let's see. The other, where would your boat parking be? Where do you plan to have boat parking?
So in the rear of the, I don't know, again on the pointer if I can, does the mouse work on this? Yeah, perfect. So right in this general area, so I'm normally loud enough. Right in this general area would be the outdoor boat and RV stuff. And again, you can see there's actually retaining wall where it's darker shaded here on the buffer line as kind of the hard stop. And then at that point, again, you would bring in the opaque fencing in those areas as well to further keep the visibility of those things out of everybody's sight line.
Any other questions for the applicant at all?
For me.
Any other questions for anyone else?
Yeah, I might have one for Teresa Stendhal, if she could come up for a second.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back up. So just a couple follow-up questions based on now what you've heard from Mr. Patterson. Let me actually start with another question. So I know you live down the road. Are you aware of any opposition of any adjacent property owners here?
The opposition that I have heard has been basically related to traffic.
Okay.
I don't think that most of them understood the variance as opposed to a rezoning, that kind of thing. And while I appreciate Mr. Patterson's talk about the development of the corridor, the one thing that I might add, since you did not get my email threads that passed on to you, this corridor, I do not believe, of course, I've only been there 46 years, but I don't believe it's going to develop industrially, per se, based on the rezonings that we've had in the last 10 to 15 years.
So quick question about this corridor study that you've referenced. Where exactly would you see that this might conflict with that?
Quite honestly, as a result of the Northwest study, when it was adopted, this entire corridor was changed relative to land use to a neighborhood activity center. It's not industrial compatible anymore. That went away in 2014.
But the zoning apparently didn't change.
Well, the zoning cannot change by an action of the Board of Commissioners. You cannot change a zoning until an applicant owner comes in to request a rezoning. You can change land use, but you can't change zonings. But this entire corridor, from the bridge at Lake Allatoona to the Bartow County line, is now a neighborhood activity center and has been since 2014.
So I'm looking at what development's taken place since, and I'm also thinking about what other options there would be in a something zoned like this. And I understand what your point is, but I would also think that it could be something less desirable possibly for the, for that
I think
corridor,
it's
those
doubtful.
neighbors. So
Some of the illustrations that were presented by Mr. Patterson, those have been there 30, 40 years. Okay, those are not new buildings, okay? The properties on the west side of Cobb Parkway are all for sale currently, and it's not driven by the sewer service area because they've had access to sewer since 2009, okay? It just, Cobb County a couple of years ago decided to spend the $2 million to sewer that area. The biggest issue, I understand the request for the 3 stories. I do think 3 stories is not appropriate for this area. It does not fit in a NAC. While you can have the presence on Rutledge, and I understand safety more than anybody, I live in the area. I think limiting it to 2 would be absolutely, more appropriate for what I do see, continued development to be based on the site plans that I have seen from various other developers that have been approved in the last 10 years.
thanks. And I don't know who to direct this question to, honestly. So I'm unless somebody else had a question for you.
I
Okay,
do.
sorry.
You just said limited to 2. You're saying limited to 2 stories? Okay.
The only 3-story structure you have is the Wellstar Health Park, and it's 77,000 square feet, sitting on 29 acres.
Okay, thank you.
My other question, not for you. I don't know who to direct this to. John, I'm going to start with you if I could. Given the what I'm guessing, I don't know if it's state county right away along Cobb Parkway, but, you know, where we see that land that, you know, sits between the subject property and then Cobb Parkway, is that'll obscure the view, won't it, of the building for the most part? Or not, do you know?
All that property is on state DOT right-of-way.
Okay,
So if they wanted to cut it to get visibility, they would need to get permission from the state of Georgia.
from the state, okay. And I don't know if Clint's done anything there, but I was just kind of trying to think about what the visibility of the building itself might be from Cobb Parkway. Okay, I don't have anything else. I do have one question actually for you, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
On the whole concern about the type of roof, because I didn't hear anybody else talking about that as a concern. Was that just something that
It's
you're
my-
thinking in terms of it being close to abutting a residential area and that aesthetics?
Yes.
Okay.
You can see right now the house from the air, at
Yep.
least. What
Uh-huh.
looks like a very nice, what the Beverly Hillbillies used to call a cement pond out back. But that seems pretty consistent with the character of the neighborhood as I drove down the
Okay.
road. And
I just wasn't sure what prompted that line of
Well,
questioning.
that
Okay.
was one of the variances we were asked about. And right now, anybody driving down that road would see just nothing but trees. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure they would, be on perfect notice about exactly what they're potentially running into here.
Yeah.
So that's why I've already started discussions with the applicant about how to properly visually shield and provide for some protection there given the residential character of that neighborhood.
Okay.
Is Carl around somewhere or somebody with stormwater? Okay, you're here live in person, sorry. I didn't know about this elevation change, I just found out about that. So tell me a little bit about that.
I'm Carl Carver with Cobb County Stormwater. I don't have, can you turn on the topo? So it looks like from here anyway, that the area along the, I guess, southeast side of the property towards 41, in that area there is the low area. So I would anticipate that they would probably put a stormwater management facility, detention pond, water quality in that area and discharge, you know, where it's flowing now. So the topography is kind of steep in the western side there, in that general area, but not so severe that they couldn't level it out like the gentleman spoke of.
Okay, so looking at this topo, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like their proposed entrance is not too terribly far from where the current pathway into the woods is, for lack of a better term, right?
Correct, yeah.
They're going to have to bring in some dirt in all likelihood just to help traffic get down onto the property, and then they'd have to increase their base elevations in several areas just to allow for the construction of the building, right?
I would anticipate those buildings being able to step, probably every so many units, they could step them down a foot or so.
All right. So is it necessary to bring in 8 feet of soil project-wide? Apparently, there was talk about flow. Can you help us with that?
At this point, they wouldn't have a final grading plan for me to review, but I would anticipate they could cut some soil out from the south and western side of the property and distribute it over the north and eastern side, and then bring in dirt to kind of balance that out and keep the low area for the pond in the southeast corner.
There was talk about bringing in several thousand feet of dirt, I think 8,000
I think that was 8,000 cubic yards.
cubic yard. Any idea how many truckloads that is for a?
Probably about, if you assumed a 10-yard truck, so that would probably be about
80?
80.
No, 800.
Yeah, 800.
Okay. Are there any issues we should be concerning ourselves with vis-à-vis the amount of stormwater that's going to be running off of the site?
Not really. It's nothing that new that would be coming out through normal plan review process when he has his final site design. They would provide the stormwater quality for the impervious area. And as of January of this year, runoff reduction is required in Cobb County. So he would have to provide reduced runoff from the site.
And they're under the impervious right now with this proposal?
For heavy industrial, yes, I think they're probably close to it.
Not sure, though? at
I'm
this
not
point?
sure. I don't remember what I had in, if I would have brought it up if it was in my comments.
Okay, what comments, if any, did you have on this? Because typically you have a lot of comments.
I don't think I had any comments based on what they were asking for a variance for.
Okay, you really just focused on the variances requested rather than the plan?
Right.
All right, any other questions for Carl at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so does anyone else have any other questions they want to ask of any other person at this point?
I don't.
Okay, so my motion is going to be to hold this, and it's based on the fact there are a lot of moving parts here, and I need to try to, so let me give some background to before I make my motion. And my background to my fellow board members is this. On the Planning Commission, we've had things come up in this area that we were unable to approve due to some of the limitations in this area, of which there are many. There are many challenges in the Ackworth area. Happily, this is a land use, a proposed land use, a specific use that has the potential to be a win-win for this area if it's done in a manner that's consistent with the adjoining land uses. I don't think this plan has us there yet, but the applicant has indicated a willingness to work, and that would be my intention to continue to work. Additionally, a question has been raised by the objector as to our authority to continue to consider this just by granting variances, to approve this plan just by granting variances. I'd like to give the Board of Commissioners a chance to address that issue, especially given some other things that have transpired recently between the Planning Commission, and I guess it was a Planning Commission matter, but I would welcome that. Other than that, though, my intent would be to move to continue or hold. Which one is the proper term, John? Hold this so I can continue to work with the applicant to address some of the concerns we cited today, including signage, landscape buffers, roof structure, total size, in order to try to frame appropriate conditions to make this a win-win for the community and for the applicant.
Great, so we have a motion. We got a second. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. And again, we got a 3-0 vote supporting the motion. All right, that'll do it. On this subject, though, John, if I could ask you before we do revisit this, could we get a copy of whatever this corridor study is? Because I got to admit I'm not familiar with it, if it's anything that's relevant and that is pertinent here.
We'll get the board a copy of that corridor study.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it very much. All right, so we are through the regular cases, and we just need a couple things for housekeeping, I guess, right? Specifically, we've got to approve the minutes from our last BZA hearing and BZA work session. Has everybody had a chance to review those documents? Is there a motion to approve? All right, a motion from Barkley, a second from Fred. I guess any need for discussion? All, okay, call for a vote. All in favor, please signify with raising your hand. All right, we've got 3-0 vote supporting that motion, and I think we can now adjourn.